happy now?
I'm never happy.
If at first you don't succeed at reviving Knight Rider, try again. Here's a one-season Knight Rider series from the late 1990s that's not so much a college try, more of a kindergarten try.
I was just getting to the good part.
So close.
Team Knight Rider.
Besides, I tagged his tote bag with the transponder. We can track him from here.
Nobody likes a good car chase anymore.
Once upon a time, there was a man with a perm and a talking car, not to be confused with a man with a car and a talking perm. Knight Rider was created by Glenn A. Larson as a way to end his production deal with Universal Studios. The show debuted in 1982 and was an instant smash success. But when it looked like the show wouldn't bring in the required numbers in syndication sales, the studio pulled the plug after 4 seasons.
You wouldn't say that if you had to pay the bills.
At Universal Studios, there would be almost instant regret with that decision, so within a few years, attempts to relaunch the franchise in some way would bubble to the surface the same way gas bubbles would mysteriously appear in the water whenever I took a bath. There were 2 attempts to relaunch Knight Rider in the early 90s, with 2 very different pilots, Knight Rider 2000 and Knight Rider 2010. Neither caught fire, no matter how badly fans of the original series joined hands and willed the master copies of those TV movies to self-combust. But this was then, and this was, well, also then, just a little bit later. 3 years later, in fact. In 1997, a first-run syndicated series appeared as part of Universal's Action Pack banner.
Now, the Foundation for Law and Government has assembled 5 highly skilled operatives and paired them with the most advanced state-of-the-art vehicles.
Team Knight Rider was about a team of 5 operatives of the Foundation for Law and Government with their 5 spectacular vehicles. One man with a supercar, or a Trans Am at least, had too much power, so now we have a Ford Mustang, a Ford F-150 pickup, a Ford Expedition SUV, and some weird thing that splits into 2 non-Ford motorbikes. No expense was spared when it came to sparing expenses.
We don't like sarcasm much either.
Before we get started, Team Knight Rider is not in any way a great series, but it is incredibly silly fun aimed at 12-year-old boys.
This disc will self-destruct you in 5 seconds.
Sometimes it's watchable for the tongue-in-cheek, goofy references, sometimes because it has absolutely no problem with gratuitous eye candy, sometimes because the action is fun. It's a cheap-looking show with some very early computer graphics and, let's be charitable, diabolical acting from fairly anonymous guest artists.
We're all gonna die!
Of the regulars, well, if you recognize them from anywhere else, then more power to you. It's a show, if not designed for, at least best enjoyed by completely switching off your brain and just enjoying the cheese. By the 1990s, television series heavy on action had almost disappeared from network television, but at the same time, action and science fiction were having their own moment in the sun in first-run syndication. That is, shows not made for the networks, but sold directly to television stations or groups of stations.
Yeah.
Shows made for first-run syndication generally had a smaller budget to deal with than a network series, but they generally did not need to sustain the same level of ratings as a network show. That extra leeway meant that if you weren't renewed, you were probably doing something monumentally wrong.
We all planned it that way.
Team Knight Rider, or TKR, has 5 operatives for the Foundation for Law and Government, which went from a nebulous private security consultancy to a quasi-military organization flying around in a giant cargo plane, Sky One, where TKR are ready to take on whatever missions come their way. Each team member has a specialty and their own state-of-the-art vehicle, well, a Ford, but somehow the AI personalities seem to be based on machine learning of the most obnoxious Big Brother evictees.
Get me a beer there, you dingbat. I'll watch it.
Kyle Stewart is the leader of this new dime store version of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's ex-CIA and might have even had a 300-page character background that in no way ever seems to affect Brixton Karnes' performance of an easy-to-get-along-with, relatively bland hero type who's just as at home selling you renter's insurance as leading an elite team of crime fighters. Kyle drives a Ford Expedition SUV, a relatively unremarkable vehicle that acts as a mobile HQ when needed. It's fitted out with Dante, a snooty pseudo-British sounding AI who likes to think of himself as the lead AI of TKR.
Dante, you want to translate that?
No, not really.
Jenny Andrews is the second in command, a Gulf War vet who drives a Ford Mustang, the show's hero car, which has lasers and stuff. Unfortunately, it's still a mid-90s Ford Mustang, so I'm on the fence whether the term state-of-the-art is bandied around for comedic purposes or performance art.
Flag always comes first.
Jenny is a capable all-rounder, able to lead when necessary, but as a former soldier, very by the book, and not somebody you would hire to warm up the audience before the taping of a sitcom, unless of course it's for Wings.
I'm afraid I'm gonna have to place you under arrest.
Oh, I don't think so.
There's a sort of will they, won't they vibe as Jenny clearly has a thing for Kyle, but Kyle as her boss keeps things on a professional level.
Why are you wearing that?
It's a will they, won't they, but no, not really. There's also a possibility that Jenny is Michael Knight's daughter, though she doesn't actually know for sure.
I think my real father may have been a Las Vegas cop named Michael Long. I found out he may secretly have joined the Foundation.
Jenny's AI is Domino, flirty and gossipy, though I'm trying to work out how a flirty car AI actually works, unless it's something to do with pumping gas, I don't know.
Oh, so Jenny's supposed to dress like a nun, just so Kyle doesn't get the wrong idea.
Softly spoken Duke De Palma is an ex-cop, ex-boxer who drives the truck. He's a little weary of his annoying teammates, but after a few episodes, we are with you on that one, Duke.
Tonight's dinner is your choice, Duke. Just tell me what you want.
How about takeout?
The truck is co-piloted by Attack Beast, the most stubborn and aggressive of Team Knight Rider's AIs. Beast is ready to bulldoze anything in his path, and has a thing for Jenny, which makes for one of the weirdest love triangles in TV history, but also some of the most insane fan fiction.
I don't do research. Why don't you ask Dante?
I don't drive, Dante.
You don't drive me either. Most of the time, I'm the one doing the
And then, because nobody could think of two more remotely cool 1990s Fords worth driving, the final two members of TKR will share a custom vehicle that will split into two motorcycles during heavy action sequences. Think of it like the source of separation in Star Trek The Next Generation, but with far less effort. Erica is a cynical former conwoman whose skills come to the fore in undercover missions, as a grifter, a master thief, or seductress.
Ooh, I like those numbers. Hurry up and show me what my new boyfriend looks like. Ew.
Actor Kathy Trageser does seem like she's auditioning for the role of sassy best friend in a poorly conceived rom-com starring Jennifer Aniston and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
How did you get those?
Well, let's just say Ned in Supply knows how to take care of his girl.
Erica's often shown to be close to falling back into her bad habits, but TKR keeps her grounded. Her bike's uptight AI, Kat, tries to protect Erica by keeping her on the straight and narrow.
How did I end up with Miss Goody Two-Shoes?
Because deep down, maybe you wish that sometimes you were the good girl. But I'm just a motorcycle. What do I know?
Lastly, there's Trek. I can't decide if he's doing an impersonation of Christian Slater or an impersonation of Christian Slater impersonating a young Jack Nicholson.
People confuse me with Christian Slater all the time.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Just so you know, that was me.
Trek is a tech genius and nerd who has to share the bike car with Erica. If at any point you laugh with Team Knight Rider rather than at it, it's likely due to a line from Trek or Erica. Trek's AI Plato is an even bigger movie nerd, referencing the oddest things at random times, almost as if the show's scripts were pumped out so very, very quickly without very much thought at all.
You're traveling through another dimension. Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Plato is quite possibly the single most irritating character in the show, but fortunately does not speak all that often. Plato is that co-worker who just posts links to outdated memes to social media. TKR is set 10 years after the original Knight Rider series, apparently throwing at least the Knight Rider 2000 TV movie under a bus, assuming it wasn't already there.
Or maybe we should never talk about this again.
Better idea.
There are various references to Michael Knight, Devon, and Kit, but none are shown on screen, apart from the end of season cliffhanger. Well, anyway. In various episodes, there's a loose background story thread pointing to a shadowy entity controlling some of the individuals with whom TKR have crossed swords. We finally meet Mobius, a wheelchair-bound mastermind pulling the strings from the shadows, and we never really see him in any detail. The show's first and only season culminates in a showdown with Mobius's Legion of Doom.
Kyle, look, over on the far dock.
Mobius.
Knight Rider was a show about a guy with a car operating mainly as a crime fighter, usually dealing with relatively small-scale crime. Team Knight Rider storylines were larger in scope, with espionage forming the basis of the bulk of the plots.
Because you know what, if you really... Really need me to, I'm ready. Jenny, try to get him over this way!
In the show, we would see attempted coups, the discovery of a small town actually being a Russian spy training village, one of Flag's failed attempts to follow up Kit, various terrorists and mercenaries, stealing, extorting, or attempting to kill this, that, or the other. Every now and then, the story would be about one member of Team Knight Rider apparently having gone rogue. But of course they didn't. There were a few romances here and there, but there were also few amazing plot twists. But I think if you're slack-jawed and drooling while watching television, Team Knight Rider is the show for you. One of the weirdest episodes was about a retired Flag agent who had enhanced physical abilities. He was able to run fast, jump high, and was super strong.
What's a Mega Man?
It's a man with genetically enhanced superhuman strength, speed, even vision and hearing.
Then you learn he lost his wife.
Her name was Summer James.
Yes, it's a $6 Million Man episode in all but name. This is awfully like Death Probe.
I was in New York back in '75 for that Star Trek convention. Is it true that your parents conceived you there?
Yeah.
One episode had a failed replacement for Kit going off reservation. Crow was built from a black Ferrari, pretty much one of the few cars you could use in a Knight Rider show and not feel shortchanged by. Another show had Duke taken over after donning super soldier armor.
Tingles.
One episode was filmed at Fantasy Island for some reason. We had a storyline when TKR vehicles turned on the team after they were sabotaged by a mechanic. Ha, I found you at last, Waldo, you magnificent bastard. Later episodes do have more meta comedy, Easter eggs, and like all truly awful 1990s shows, would name drop more popular shows.
Food, color, hobby, that Doctor Who episode.
Planet of the Spiders?
The penultimate episode, Spy Girls, and this is pure supposition on my part, seems awfully like an awful pilot for a potentially awful Charlie's Angels ripoff.
So now what? You're going to kill me?
Oh, never. Not you. I'm taking you with me.
The final episode, Legion of Doom, saw a bunch of villains from throughout the season recruited by Mobius for a caper, while TKR also have to hunt down the mysterious Shadow who's been helping them on and off. Mobius's plot just sort of fizzles out while TKR follow the clues to oof.
I'm Michael Knight, or at least I was.
Oh my god, a cliffhanger, to be continued next season on Team... no, they cancelled. I've no idea if they'd planned to tempt David Hasselhoff to show up. He was at this time working on various Baywatch projects, as well as a turn as Nick Fury in a TV movie.
Devin always got invited. I never trusted him. He was always hitting on my wife.
Team Knight Rider worked best when the gags worked, and the gags tended to work better in later episodes when the writers and cast had almost found their feet.
I'm married.
Oh. Do you have a son?
Taken as a serious drama, this does not work. Taken as a parody that's not really all that funny, it almost works in places. The dramatic moments throughout fall flatter than a stuntman who tried to loop a steamroller.
This is all my fault!
Let's be charitable. When the show wasn't being silly in a good way, it could very often be cringeworthy.
I'll do the talking.
The production values were mostly quite ordinary, even for a syndicated series. There's very little remotely approaching atmospheric lighting or nice photography. The sets for TKR's home base, Sky One, do not inspire confidence.
Ow, that hurt.
Cheap and cheerful is probably the nicest way to describe how this show looks. Much of it was filmed on location, the vast bulk of it presumably in generally sunny Southern California, judging by some of the locations. It does seem like they used the same 3 roads over and over. Even so, there's a liberal use of process work throughout the show, even when they were meant to be in Los Angeles.
Oh, I just love Southern California. Love it.
Sometimes it's blue or green screen, and at other times it's introvision, basically where the actors stand in front of a screen with a background image projected onto it so the composited image is captured in camera, which lessens the amount of expensive post-production for the effects shots.
Have you had a nose job since the last time I saw you?
No. Maybe you should consider one.
It's a late 1990s show with its post-production carried out on video, so there are lots of video effects and some basic CG in places. But rather than enhancing the production, just seems to make it all a bit tacky, like the time Uncle Reg installed heavy-duty roof racks on the hearse at his funeral director business and advertised 2-for-1 deals.
But some penny ante chump change from an armored truck heist.
Corners were clearly cut to bring this fairly ambitious show in on a tight budget. It's an action series, so did they at least get that part right? The numerous fistfights and unarmed combat scenes are mostly alright. I could probably watch Christine Steele in particular beat up stunt performers all day. Along with the fistfights and occasional shootouts, and of course people jumping from explosions, the vehicular stunts were generally done very well. Holy No one turbo boosts at any time, but TKR vehicles have lasers and missiles and stuff. They often just use them as battering rams. It's almost as if the show was structured around a car chase in each episode, and the characters, situations and plots were all built around what the stunt team had already come up with.
That can happen?
It's happening to me.
You think you're so witty.
As Knight Rider's original creator, Glenn A. Larson is credited as an executive producer, though he would not be involved with the actual making of the show. Team Knight Rider was developed by Rick Kopp and David A. Goodman. Kopp's work outside of the show was as a writer, where he wrote, say, the Brady Bunch movie and odd TV assignments, including Wings. Kopp also worked as an actor, appearing in this series as Sky One's chef. There was clearly nobody there willing to tell the executive producer to tone it down just a bit. David A. Goodman would write and produce for Family Guy, Futurama, Star Trek Enterprise, and would later become an executive producer for The Orville. The regular cast are reasonable. None of them are particularly bad, though at least the actors playing Erica and Trek can deliver a joke half decently. Some of the regulars would appear in other series. Star Brixton Karnes passed away at a relatively young age, while I suppose the most notable guest appearance was Christine Steele appearing in the full motion video sequences in a late 1990s Command & Conquer game.
It is the 90s.
Normally when we look at an older show we might point out the familiar faces or before they were famous, but this show seems to have cast its guest roles based on enthusiasm rather than experience or potential.
I'm afraid it's a bit late for hijinks!
I mean, Father Mulcahy randomly turns up as a villain in one episode, as does George Lazenby. Amazing they managed to find a date where George Lazenby was available.
We don't like sarcasm much either.
David McCallum from Man from U.N.C.L.E. and later NCIS does voice Mobius, and of the main cast, the most notable would probably have to be AI Domino in Jenny's Car, voiced by Nia Vardalos a few years before her above-average sized wedding. Team Knight Rider is a name not so much whispered by Knight Rider fans as hissed. It wants to be thought of as a continuation of the original series' legacy, but its laughably low-budget origins are constantly on display.
Sorry, partner. Big guns don't impress me.
If you wanted a Knight Rider show, this is sort of a Knight Rider show, but not enough of one.
I want what you want. Justice.
If you came into TKR wanting to see a bit of late 90s syndicated cheese with nothing required of the viewer except to not change the channel, well, here's the show for you.
Stay tuned tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Team Knight Rider was cancelled decades ago, but it is some incredibly silly fun if you're in the mood for incredibly silly fun. Like the foreman of a jury inhaling helium just before reading the verdict in a RICO trial.
We, the jury, do hereby find the defendant guilty.
Team Knight Rider seems to be written as a light show with fun action. The dramatic scenes in this show do fall on its butt like a kindergarten capoeira class.
Professor Jackson Roykert designed it?
Team Knight Rider did make me laugh at times when I wasn't expecting it. It's not always at the show, but with the show.
I guess it's true what they say. Trucks are stupid.
Okay, maybe it was a titter at best, but I tittered. It's not quite a parody show, but maybe its problem is it's not enough of a parody show.
I used to have dreams like this.
I mean, some of this acting is absolutely dire.
I appreciated your enthusiasm, but that was a bit extreme.
And I will make you sorry you ever came to this stinking town.
The show has charm in places, with the leads eventually becoming quite watchable in their own way. By the end, I didn't really mind the main characters, but a little charm was clearly not enough to support this show.
Well, guess we should be going.
Knight Rider would be back at least one more time, but it would be back on network television a decade later, with a show that tried to update the original show's formula without completely ignoring it.
It's easier for everybody just to forget the whole thing.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
If you speak English, why didn't you say something?
None of you said hello.